some questions that need to be answered. Of course, there's that suggestion and proposal that matatus coming into the city should terminate outside the the CBD, and a different system comes into play. But Brian Weke, you have a question or two to the Deputy Governor, because you don't seem to agree that that will work.
Yeah. You know, when I hear the Deputy Governor touting a name like international consultants, meaning that the mere name international and consultants used together is the answer to everything. Yes, remember the other day when they got some consultants, I don't know whether they were local, international or national, and they had advised them to close all roundabouts. You saw what happened in this city. There was heavy traffic. They really got it wrong. Completely.
But let's agree,
for 2 weeks.
At least one roundabout, they got it right.
Yeah, absolutely.
The
Westlands one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not if you live in Westlands.
Well, I use that area, and I know it works at least.
No, at least, when you say at least one, as in you can see, you need not to get a consultant to lie to you, then you get one right. So, what we want is that even as you talk about this transport master plan, it is important that you involve serious stakeholders. And by the mere fact that you bring in international consultants who don't even understand the workings and the routings of the matatu industry, so you have to look at what has not worked before. This trial and error business that the county keeps on engaging us on, really, I don't know. I would want to look at the master plan.
I think, Bona Deputy Governor, it will help you to take notes, because there's quite a number of questions. I'll go around then and have you as the last.
I think
it would be best for you to respond to all the issues they'll raise, because there'll be quite a number. Yeah?
Okay.
Yes.
So yeah, I'm saying it will be important to involve the people who are currently in the matatu industry. Now, when you talk about terminating services from Eastlands, for instance, Jogorod, you terminate at what is it called, Mudurwa. We tried that before. There was gridlock on Jogorod. If you want to again get the ones that are coming from Thika Road and they terminate at Parklands, Desai Road, again, if you remember when Michuki was trying to implement that, it was a big problem. There was actually literally a gridlock. And that's why when you hear him say that Nairobi is a very small city, the question can never be to terminate its services somewhere. The answer should be, how do you ensure that mass people, the poor people, actually come into town, and the people who have cars should actually be punished for coming into the city. And that's a very simple issue that happens all over.
Yes. Bwana Kangata, if you travel from Murang'a by matatu, which I know right now you don't, but if you do that, then you come to Nairobi, then you have to terminate at Ngara or Desai Road and then take another matatu. Do you think that works for people coming from that direction?
No way. I think it will be like a punishment to the poor people and to the rural people, because that one, it would mean you pay fare twice. That is from Murang'a to, let's say, Murang'a Road in Nairobi, then from Murang'a Road to the city center. I think we need to think outside the box. And if I was a city planner, the first thing I would do is to conduct a survey and ask people, what makes you to come to the city center? And from there, then I would then think, based on the result of that survey, which service probably would I take it out of Nairobi to reduce this notion of people rushing into the city center. And I would imagine there is a high percentage of jam that is caused by people who are going into the city using private transport. And therefore, I would endeavor to get these guys out of the city center. And one of the most rational thing to do, I would imagine from where I see it, is to get government out of Nairobi. That is the parliament, judiciary, the city council, because all these guys, more often than not, all of them have private vehicles. If you were to have a government city, let's say built outside Nairobi, the one, you would spur urbanization, which is one of the goals of any country that wants to become developed. Number two, you would reduce congestion into the city center. Number three, it may even be cheaper. because building a government city outside Nairobi maybe may cost about 10 billion. All these plans, by the way, they are very expensive, which are being touted by either him or him. They are very expensive. So I think that may be one of the rational things to do. If, for instance, we parliament, we were to go, let's say, for instance, let's say, in a region that is somehow outside Nairobi, building a new building there, probably selling where we are now currently conducting our services. When we compare those costs, it may make rational sense for us now to move outside Nairobi or even in the outskirts of Nairobi, and you build infrastructure in that region. By that way, you are going to reduce people coming to the Ministry of Lands, people coming to the judiciary, people coming to the High Court, people coming to Parliament, and that way you now make the city center a more of a commercial hub as opposed to being an administrative center.
Eastleigh is almost in the city center. Does it mean therefore that people from the constituency should just forget about matatus and just be walking to work?
No, I think let's go back to the main issue. The main issue is Nairobi's main problem is structural. This is a city, a small city that has grown in population. It simply cannot cope with the large number of people who want to come in every day. It's not a matatu problem alone. It's a structural problem. So we need to improve the city in terms of infrastructure, provide various alternatives to the population to get here. The second thing is to kind of expand the city. The city center should not be where it is. It should expand to the Eastlands, it should expand to other places, so that less people come to the city center. They get other places to go to for their services. And I agree with Mheshimiwa Kangata's idea of moving some of the services that people come to, government, other institutions, can be decentralized and move to various places so that there is no urge for people to come into the city center. Of course, Kamkunji has 2 or 3 maybe important hubs where people come to. One is the Juakali area, the other one is Kikomba, and the third one is Eastleigh. These are major commercial centers, hubs, that are just as important or as big as the city center. And so large populations go there, and there's a lot of problems of congestion, traffic congestion, problems of space. And in recent weeks, the city authorities have begun to pay attention to make sure that there's decongestion in those areas. But again, also we have problems of infrastructure that needs to be attended to.
Yes.
But I believe that the city should be going to the Eastlands, going to Ngong and other areas where there's space, so that we can then disperse our population and have less problems. But more importantly, this city really does need a proper public transport system. You know, I've just come back from Germany and France, Paris and Frankfurt, and some of the pleasures of being in those cities is how the network of transport system, the underground, the metro system, the bus system, everything works so efficiently and had expanded over the years to be able to cater for millions of people coming into those cities efficiently and easily and affordable transport system. So we need to move on that. And then another element I think that is lacking, which I think either the county government or the government do need to do, is behavioral change. You know, a lot of people do not know how to cope with this congestion. In the case of matatus, we have complained about matatus, but people have not been educated. There's no civil education. Why would someone get into a matatu which is already overloaded? Why would they want to suffer the second thing is there any training for drivers and conductors about how they should behave? And like Brian Weke said, that there was a code of conduct. Is there an aerobic code of conduct for drivers and conductors? And our public better educated on how to maximize and avoid some of the problems that we get in terms of our transport.
Quite a number of
excuse me, just before we also need to celebrate some of the achievements that have been obtained, particularly by the Kibaki government and also which the Jubilee government is also doing. I think the idea of bypasses was a very brilliant idea, and we need to thank that person who came up with that idea, because I think it has done its part towards decongesting the city center. Maybe we need to strengthen that idea of bypasses, because for instance, the bypass from Ruiru to the airport is still one single lane. Probably it needs to be doubled, and most likely we also need to urge the current government to speed up the bypass that it wants to build from Kikuyu via that Kiambu region, so that at least we can have another bypass. And most likely also, apart from looking in terms of paving those roads, maybe we can also look at sourcing funds so that we can now have a transport system that is based on railway to complement those bypasses.
Yes. Now, of course, there are quite a number of proposals, criticism for your work so far, even applause from Bwana Yusuf Hassan. He says you've done something to decongest those areas of Kamukunji and Juakali. But how much of this do you have within the master plan that you want to launch this week?
Yeah, I mean, I've listened to my colleagues very carefully, and I just want to say this. Public transportation is really at the center. It's the nerve of any city, economically, job creation, safety, and so on and so forth. So you just can't wake up in the morning and decide to do trial and error things. You have to think about it very carefully, and you need specialists to help you think about that, because there are studies in traffic management. So when I say you need good leadership at the top of Nairobi to be able to solve some of these very complex ideas, somebody like Brian Weke wouldn't be able to fit in that category, because, I mean, owning a matatu cannot help you solve transport problems in such a big city. So let me just break it down for my colleagues so that they can understand properly. A good metropolitan transport system that can move millions and millions of people in and around the city, first of all, must be safe, must be comfortable, must be reliable, and must be efficient. Yeah,
and affordable.
If you're supposed to get to work at 8 o'clock in the morning, you need to get to work at 8 o'clock in the morning. Your transportation system must be able to ensure that you get to work there safely. Yeah. Number two, you have to integrate several means of transport. You have the buses, you have the matatus, now you have the boda bodas, you have the private cars, you have the train, and then you have the good old way of transport, your two legs, walking, right? So this master plan was supposed to integrate all of these things. Now the European Union hired for us, as part of a grant, consultants to help us think through all these things and come up with a plan, which we have. We are not launching it on Wednesday. Wednesday I said we are going to see part of the implementation of that plan, which was to create parking centers away from the city. These are not termination points for matatus. I said here earlier that part of that plan is to have diametric routing, where matatus are on the go. What problem does that solve? It solves the problem where you have on Tomboya Street right now and Moi Avenue, where you have 30, 40 matatus from the same circle, which are empty, that stop in front of people's shops, trying to get passengers. It congests the city completely. It's an environmental hazard because it blows smoke from diesel into passers-by, and then it stops business because you're parking in front of people's shops, you're touting, you're making noise, and people don't want to shop anymore because of that nuisance. So what we are saying is, listen, why do you need all these 30 matatus going to the same place from the same circle, parked idling in one of your major busiest streets in the city, doing nothing? So you create for them bus terminuses outside of the city, then when you're very coordinated, you have them coming in through one side of the city, all the way through the city, and out of the city, with time limits on how long you can stop to pick and to drop. So that solves the problem that Irungu Kangata was talking about, that you can't bring poor people into the city. These are things that we've thought about. Number two, if you've noticed, all the roads that Nairobi is doing now have non-motorized transport, pavement. For the first time in the history of this city, people can now walk comfortably. Why? Because we did the same study and found out all the bypasses have that. All along Uhuru Highway now has that. All the roads in your constituency, all of Isili now, General Waringi has that. All the avenues have the same. We are solving the issue of where we created pedestrian walkways in your constituency, and then hawkers came and sat on the pedestrian walkways, and we enforced that. We have all along Dennis Pritt Road, and it's a continuous effort. We have all along Agwins Kodek Road, all along Gong Road, and so on and so forth. So what we are doing is revealing, our study showed us that 50% of the people in Nairobi walk. So we are taking advantage of that. For the first time now, we have cycling lanes, like you saw that we did with these missing links that came in. So there's a lot of things that you have to do to integrate all these things for public transportation. Now, at the heart of it, you need an authority that's going to manage all these things and talk to our neighbors. That's the Nairobi Metropolitan Transport Authority. It had to be legislated because of some of the regulations that you bring through it. NAMATA will ensure that now you have standards. We'll say that for a bus to operate in Nairobi, it must be accessible to those with disabilities. It must have seating capacity of so much. People must be seated comfortably. It must be environmentally safe, so no loud music that will damage your ears and noise pollute and so on and so forth. That is stuck in Parliament. So I'm urging my two colleagues in Parliament, please help us ensure that that legislation passes, so that we continue implementing some of these things. Just before
and as we wrap up this discussion, because I realize the caption there on the screen could be misleading. It's reading Matatu Dragging Gang, and if my director could help me with this, we're actually discussing the Nairobi transport crisis, or the Nairobi transport system, and not the Matatu Dragging Gang.
So then now let's talk about infrastructure. Again, Brian poured cold water about international consultants, but you have to do traffic studies to come up with a solution, because you're trying to fix a problem. So for example, on the roundabouts that he spoke about, you have to be able to count how many cars come all the way from Mombasa Road. When they get to the Nyayo Stadium roundabout, how many go to Likoni, how many go up Langata Road, how many continue to Uhuru Highway. When you get to the next roundabout, the same thing. So you have to have people be able to count all those cars, find out where the jam is. And where we found out where the jam is on Mombasa Road is you're on a highway, you're at 60 kilometers an hour. Then all of a sudden, you've been driving at 60 from Mombasa, you come to a stop because there's a roundabout. So we said we have to get rid of the roundabouts. Now the short-term solution was to block them. That didn't work. The long-term solution, which has now been designed, is to have, based on advice from consultants, an overpass. Brian, this is very serious business, so I'll just ignore this, because we can't be pedestrian about this. This is really Nairobi at its core, so we are very passionate about that. We can't afford jokes. So we now have an overpass from JKIA that's been designed, helped again by our friends the World Bank, all the way to Rironi, with very serious interchanges where the roundabouts used to be, and you're able to design that based on how many cars are going in each direction.
In your projection, how long will that take?
But before this becomes
the design is almost
exercise for the
so what we have done now, just hold on, I'm trying to educate Nairobians what the leadership has done for them. So again, for the first time in the history of this city, while transport is not entirely our responsibility, it's shared amongst different road agencies, NTSA, Ministry of Transport, and so on and so forth. As the governor, deputy governor of this city, leadership of this city, we have taken initiative and said, listen, it's probably only 20% of our responsibility, but we must drive it because this is our city. So what we've done is, for the first time ever, we've integrated roads, Kenya Roads Board, we've integrated Kenya Rural Roads Authority, Kenya Urban Roads Authority, Kenya National Highways Authority, Kenya, and ourselves. And we are the ones who convene those meetings every 2 weeks to discuss transport issues in Nairobi. So that we make sure we are coordinated from all angles.
Are you feeling any effects of this meetings that they are holding every 2 weeks?
I find all this overwhelming. For example, anywhere in the world, roundabouts are used for the control of traffic.